It's time to put your health in your own hands. Get ready to learn from today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Angevin Balmer. Joy is an evidence-based energy healer validated by scientific research. She is a former educator with more than 30 years of experience, and she created a very successful homeschool assistance program and worked with students of all ages and all areas of instruction. She has a deep belief in the power of education, coupled with an understanding that only connection to the divine can help people reach their highest potential. She has sought ways to integrate traditional education with holistic healing and the spiritual journey. And with that, I'd like to say welcome, Joy.
Thank you, Tammy. It's great to be here.
You have a lot of experience with Lyme disease, and I was just reading an article just the other day that they've discovered another tick that carries Lyme disease in the United States, and that something that started in, Lyme, Connecticut, that's where it got its name, is now something that has spread throughout the country. I know that's a fact because I have friends who live in Oregon who contracted Lyme disease through getting bitten by ticks in Oregon. So it is not something that is just in one area of the United States. So can you tell me more about Lyme disease and just some basic information about it?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, the whole life cycle of the tick is very interesting. They need blood at every stage of their life. But you're right. Every state, I think, except Hawaii, has tick-borne Lyme disease. But Lyme disease, I wanted to go back a little bit. Lyme disease has been around for a long time. They just discovered a ice age human dating 5,300 years that had the Borrelia bacteria. And so that person had Lyme's disease. But it wasn't like it became pandemic like it is kind of becoming now. I mean, Lyme disease is really underreported. They say that there's only maybe 30,000 a year being reported to the CDC, but now it's becoming, now that CDC is kind of recognizing that really and truly there's more than 300,000 cases every year in the United States. And that's a huge growth in the problem of Lyme disease. Lyme disease is such an interesting thing because it's very, very hard to diagnose. They have a couple tests that are available, the ELISA and the Western blot, but they have so many false negatives that people don't know. They might think, oh, okay, I had that test. I don't have any, I've got a negative, but then they still have the symptoms. So it's a very interesting disease and a very difficult one to diagnose. And it's also becoming more and more profound, It's more and more, it's everywhere now. It's just people are used to deny that it even existed, but now it's so prevalent in society that you can't deny it.
That's interesting because I know that sometimes if you get a tick, obviously it probably will fall off before you even know that you had a tick, but often people find ticks and then they say that one of the things about a tick bite or that it would be like you'd get a bullet like circle on your body somewhere, and some people may or may not notice that, but the symptoms are pretty profound, and of course they can be similar to other things. What are the symptoms that somebody should be looking for, especially, let's say that, hey, I had a tick on me and I pulled it off, and later I got this bullet rash. So the odds are that you've been bitten by a tick, and what if you haven't? Because some of these symptoms, they may mock other illnesses. Is that right?
They call Lyme's disease the great mimicker because it mimics so many things: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, sleep disorders, all of those things. Those are the symptoms of Lyme's. But so if you have, this is kind of what I have just in my own search, because I had Lyme's disease, and because, of all the problems with diagnosis, and because of the disbelief in the medical system, the medical community didn't want to admit there was Lyme disease. The medical community didn't want to admit that there were deer ticks that had Lyme disease. Like for me, it was in Iowa. When I went to the doctor said, there's no Lyme disease in Iowa, and refused to give me any antibiotics, even though I had the bullet. But the bullet is not something that is guaranteed. Only 80% of people get that bullet rash. Sometimes it doesn't even look like a bullet. Sometimes it just looks like a red spot. So it's pretty hard to say, you can't just count on that bullet rash to know that you've got Lyme disease. You just have to have an observation. And some of the main symptoms are moving arthritis. So if you have one day you have a pain in your foot, but the next day you have it in your knee, maybe the next day you have it in your shoulder, then that's kind of a sign that you have Lyme disease. Another symptom is pain in the sternum. So right in your breastplate, if you have pain there, that's kind of a sign that you have Lyme disease. Another one is shoulder pain in your right shoulder. It seems like, I don't know why that is, but if you have pain in your right shoulder, that, these seem so kind of lame, you think, oh, I got a pain in my right shoulder, I might have Lyme disease. But you kind of have to look at these things with Lyme disease because it's insidious. It's these very simple symptoms that become very problematic very quickly. Another symptom is brain fog and cognitive decline, memory loss, sleep problems. I've heard someone say there's 150 different symptoms of Lyme. That's just huge. So if you have just two of them, you need to think, boy, I might have Lyme. And you need to think about that and maybe act upon it.
I would think that no matter where you live, if there are ticks, you probably need to, be aware of that. I live in Florida, and I don't know if there's ticks with Lyme disease, but I do know people and my pets, I've seen the ticks come in with the big ticks on their face or on their neck or on their bodies, and I picked them off of them. And, again, I don't know if the ticks in Florida carry it. But again, if you look at the reality of life, because people move all over, animals move all over, and all of these, the weather, sometimes the winters aren't cold enough to kill anything. And of course, in Florida,
we're never cold enough.
Anything that's long enough to really kill anything. I mean, I've even talked to people who've had ticks that were all over their walls in a house. were little black spots, and when they examined them, they were ticks. And in Oregon, my friend who had Lyme disease, he actually picked up the ticks like camping, when he was fishing. And he also talked about having heart arrhythmia, where his heart would race. You talked about the moving pains. Is that because of the whatever is causing the Lyme disease? Is it a bacteria or a worm? I mean, what exactly is it that is causing the Lyme? Is it a critter? I mean,
Tammy, it's a bacteria, the Borrelia bacteria, and there's over 300 different kinds of Borrelia bacteria worldwide. There's 100 different species in the United States, or different types of Borrelia, and they're a spiral kete. They move in spiral motion, and that makes it hard to find them. They move so they can kind of drill or get into the joints or get into the tissues or get into your organs. And so that's why the testing doesn't work so well, because if it's a blood test, they hide in the joints or they hide in the tissues. And then when you take the blood test, you get a false negative. So that's the problem with the shape. And another interesting thing about the fact that they have this shape is they now think that Lyme disease is sexually transmitted as well as just a tick bite, and they haven't had there's no tests, or actually research hasn't been done yet, but the shape and everything is just like the bacteria that causes syphilis. And the way the bacteria behaves is just like syphilis. And so they're feeling now, and they find that couples end up having Lyme disease together. And they have found through testing and research that the bacteria is in the semen, in the vaginal mucus, all of that. The bacteria is in there. So it only makes sense that it is transmitted sexually too. And that is research that's yet to be done. So there's that. They've researched definitely that babies can get Lyme disease from their mother through birth. So that's another way that you can get Lyme disease. And I was reading just the other day when I was preparing for this interview with you that there's now the idea that a very low-grade airborne Lyme disease is starting to manifest. So that means that Lyme disease is just going to take off. It's going to confuse the medical world. They're not going to know what's really going on with all these people and all these symptoms that are going to develop.
Well, I know that in the news just this year, there have been some odd diseases that they're talking about, similar to polio. And they're like, well, we don't know what this is. It's not anything that we've seen before. So like you said, who knows? So if with these, obviously, when you discovered you had Lyme disease, how did you, like you said, you were in Iowa, the doctor basically said, oh, that's impossible, and didn't even treat you with the known ways to treat it. What are the ways that they treat it, and what kind of a doctor should you go to if let's say your primary care doctor doesn't believe in it? I mean, that's pretty hard to think that a doctor would literally blow you off and make a claim like, oh, it can't be because of where you live. even though you had, a tick bite. And it's almost like, if a tick bites you, you should rule out Lyme disease before just saying, no, it can't be.
Right. Luckily, I think this year, 2018, the CDC recognized Lyme disease. They, which is a huge, big thing. They recognized that there were way more cases than they have been reporting. And so now the medical world, because that's sort of the basis of how the doctors can relate or how they can deal with it. But one interesting thing I was thinking about, how do they treat it? The medical model, the medical world likes to kill everything. They like to kill all the bugs. That's kind of been the history. So if you have a fever, give them antibiotics, just kill whatever it is. This has sort of been the history of the medical model. And with Lyme disease, they've done that. They've said, take antibiotics, and it's usually doxycycline. And usually you take it, if you know right away, you're supposed to take, a 3-week dose or a 6-week dose. But then because of the characteristics of the actual bacteria, not only are they spiral in shape, but they can shift shape. They can turn into a cyst, or they can make their bodies round. And when their bodies are round, they're protected against the antibiotics. So then there you are. You're taking these antibiotics that are killing everything in your gut. And you're not killing the Borrelia bacteria that are, so good. That's the thing. That's not just the Borrelia, but all bacteria. All creatures on this planet are evolving, and they're becoming better and better at who they are. And that's the purpose of life. And so these Borrelia are in your body doing their thing, and you are killing their gut, all the other bacteria, all the other creatures in your body, so that they then have like an empty playing field to just create havoc. So, from all my research, everything that happened to me, I've come to feel that instead of having this Darth Vader kind of approach to treating Lyme, it's better to have a more holistic approach to treating Lyme. And, that includes lots of vegetables, just lots of vegetables. It includes doing detoxification and trying to get rid of heavy metals, because another thing that the Lyme Borrelia bacteria does is they create biofilm. This is this slime. I kind of feel like it's like, snails or earthworms, when they crawl, there's this little path that they leave. And that's what happens with all this bacteria. They leave this little slimy path, and that path kind of soaks up and holds in the heavy metals, the mercury, anything that you might be breathing from, the cars going by your house, or, the toxins in the environment are everywhere. And we do our best to detoxify our environment, but it's still there. That's just the way it is. And those things get in your body and it just creates havoc. So you need to do those things to help your body become a healthy body. That's the whole thing. And that's why, for me, the Trivedi Effect was just such a support system during the time that I had Lyme's disease.
So now, so you talk about it in the past tense. Is Lyme curable in the sense that you can get rid of that bacteria, or is it, like you said, does it go into remission because they hide, or because you created an environment that they didn't like? Do they eventually die off and your body eliminates them like it would other things, like you said, detoxing and everything. And if you could go more into, maybe you talked about the diet, but you also talked about the Trivedi Effect, the LifeForce Energy transmissions. Maybe you could tell us how that combination or the LifeForce Energy transmissions helped you, and how you knew that they were working.
Yeah, when you're in the process of having Lyme and you have all these things, like for me, it was depression and, not feeling like I wanted to go out or talk to people. One of the symptoms is being very antisocial, not being able to talk to people. And you just, you don't know where to go or how to do it. But I called a medical intuitive, and that person gave me a whole set of herbs. So you're treating Lyme at every angle. So yes, I wasn't using antibiotics, but I was using herbs that do kill the bacteria. So that was happening. Then you have to detox, because the bacteria, when they die off, you have the problem with die-off. And it really seems to be substantial for a lot of the people with Lyme. They call it a Herx response, where they just get so sick, you're just throwing up. And so you've got that to deal with. I mean, it's sometimes the healing of Lyme is as hard as having the Lyme. So then, it's like every angle you have to deal with. I changed my diet. I didn't eat any sugar or fruit, which I think is just huge. It's a huge thing if you want to stop. If you want to start with one thing, then that would be it. Just get rid of sugar, and don't eat fruit either, because fruit is sugar that feeds the bacteria. Really, don't eat anything that creates sugar in your body. So white bread, rice, those kinds of things also create sugar as it feeds the body, and those also feed the bacteria. So, I just stopped those things. I stopped eating grains, I stopped eating sugar, and I stopped eating fruit. And it was really hard for me, because we were in Hawaii at the time, and we had this mango tree. It had like 250 mangoes, the most beautiful mangoes you ever saw. They were just gorgeous. And they were all ripe during this time that I was having, that I'm not eating any fruit. And I was like, sometimes my husband would bring, we would eat the falls first, so they'd be like 12 mangoes that had fallen off the tree, and we're like, oh, we got to do something and he's eating so many, and I'm just like looking at them. They were so delicious. I did cut some up and freeze them, but it's not quite the same. But anyway, that was one of the things I did to start. That was the first thing. And I was taking the herbs that was killing them off, and I was doing some heavy metal detox, and one of the easiest things people can do for that is eat cilantro. Now, I happen to be a person that loves cilantro, so I was very lucky. Some people just hate cilantro. So those people, again, it's just hard, because you've got all these symptoms, and if you eat cilantro, it helps a lot. But anyway, but the biggest thing for me was the fact that I had Guruji Mahendra Trivedi in my life, and I had him giving me blessings every single night. I was on the daily transmission program, and those blessings, they're as you said, they were LifeForce Energy transmissions, and that's what I actually do with my business, JoyBlessings, the LifeForce, because after this experience, I mean, if you can help someone even a little bit, if you can help their sleep disorders by giving them a blessing, that is going to support them 100% on their path of getting rid of Lyme. And if you get rid of the sleep disorder, then they are a stronger, healthier body for fighting off the other problems that are also all part of Lyme. So if you wake up in the morning, you're refreshed, and you feel ready to face whatever happens, then maybe you don't have the depression quite so strong. I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, I had depression, but it was not so bad. I mean, there were times I thought, God, life is not worth living. I mean, I'm here in Hawaii, I'm walking on the beach, but everything is just dull. So I had those things. Life was not worth living, but I didn't have the suicide or the numbness. I mean, with Lyme, it's a depression that seems different. It's like they're just numb. You just don't have any feelings. So, I mean, I can maybe ask me some more questions about the Trivedi Effect, because I'm just kind of getting into this. It's just so important to have that support system.
Well, I think it's really interesting because you said, and I think it makes a lot of sense to eliminate sugar or white carbohydrates or things, or, refined foods. And then, like, you're absolutely right. Most fruits it's sugar, that's what fructose is.
Yeah.
And sugar, of course, feeds the bad bacteria. And like you said, you need to starve that, whatever that bacteria is that Lyme disease is, created from. And then, like you said, if you are receiving the energy transmissions, and if those are helping you with your life force and your connection to the Creator, the God of your understanding, and that intelligent energy is working on your body in the way, whatever way it needs to be working on you. And like you said, it was a support. The LifeForce Energy blessings are a support to all the other things you were doing, because you were resting better, you were feeling better, and at the same time you were acting on your own behalf by eating better, and you recognized that you were trying to detox your body, and you were understanding, that if I eat this, I'll feed the bad stuff and it'll make me feel better or feel worse.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that makes me think about, the whole thing about the life force. Everybody has life force in them or they'd be dead, But to get more and more as you age, it seems like things happen and you don't have so much life force. And as you have Lyme disease, then that's kind of like a block. Like if you think about a river that's flowing down a hill, and it just constantly has water in it. It's constantly moving. That's the life force. But then, a tree falls and creates a block, which is kind of like this Borrelia bacteria. It creates something in that life force. So it's not just moving. It's not just doing. It's not just vital. And that's where the Trivedi Effect helps you, because that's where it moves those obstacles. It removes the blocks that are stopping the life force. It's stopping your own ability to heal. And it's like another example I have that I really like, that when I was on Maui, the Maui had a lot of the turtles came in and they had their nests and they had their babies there. And, but the babies have lost their natural blueprint in such a way that they didn't know how to find their way back to the sea after they were born. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now. It's just like, the sea turtles can't find their way back to the sea. And so on Maui, and I know this is other places in the world too, there's a whole system of volunteers that stay up all night long. And when those turtles hatch, they don't know when they're going to hatch, but when they do, they make sure they get to the sea. So at least they have that chance of life, because they've lost a little bit of their natural blueprint. So whatever is happening on the earth, it's happening not just to humans, not just with the Lyme people, Lyme disease taking over, but another example is vitamin D. So there's been so many tests, research, people all worldwide, the women who are out in the fields in India have been tested, and they're in the sun all day long, and they're not producing vitamin D. In Dubai, it's so sunny there. They're not producing enough vitamin D for they're vitamin D deficient. It's worldwide. People are vitamin D deficient everywhere. So the LifeForce is got these trees, like the river, it's got blocks, and the Trivedi Effect clears those blockages. It harnesses the energy of the universe, the divine energy. It connects you to the God of your understanding. And by doing that, by giving you that life force, then your body's able to handle all these things that happen, like with the Lyme disease, the fatigue, the depression, the shoulder pain, the joint pain. I mean, some people can't even walk. They can't even get out of bed with Lyme disease. It's just, so anyway, it's just like I just am so,
Well, I think you really passionately described that Trivedi Effect and LifeForce Energy definitely makes a huge difference. So if somebody wanted to talk to you more about Lyme disease and about JoyBlessings, how can they do that?
Well, they could go to my website, which is JoyBlessings.com. And I have a phone number there, or they could, that way, and they have my email. They could send me an email, and they could get in touch with me that way. And yeah, it would be great, because it would be so great if you had Lyme disease to have just a little support in that area of connection to the divine. Because that's, it's not like you have to think about the divine all the time. You just have to be connected so that you can have that support.
Well, it sounds like you'd be a good person to talk to about, number one, just about Lyme disease, and you gave us some hints about some of the things that you did, related to the diet, related to the LifeForce Energy blessings or transmissions, and a lot of food for thought about different ways to look at Lyme disease and how to help yourself feel better. Because, for some people, maybe they've done all of the medication, but they still feel like crap, and they just need that life force re-energized. And so JoyBlessings.com, you can go there and check it out. And you can also see the science behind the LifeForce Energy blessings too. There's a lot of scientific research that supports everything that Joy has been saying. So Joy, thank you so much for talking with me about Lyme disease today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for having me.
Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day. This information is not intended to provide diagnosis, treatment, or medical advice. Products, services, information, and other content provided in this broadcast, including information that may be provided in this broadcast directly or indirectly by linking to third-party websites, are provided for informational purposes only. Please consult with a physician or other healthcare professional regarding any medical or health-related diagnosis or treatment options.
You've been listening to today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. To get more solid health and wellness information, visit OptimalHealthRadio.com.